Let me just say it is an honor to be here with you all today, and great to be here with my dear friend Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, who has been a leader, obviously, on this issue and so many others when it comes to foreign policy. As a former chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee for the House, obviously we have a significant number of issues that we face and that we're up against on a regular basis. And let me just simply say, in the absence of leadership, someone will rush to fill that void. And one of the things that I hear over and over again as I travel, as I talk to individuals, is that this common question is, where is America? A common theme, saying we just don't hear from America, we don't find them anywhere. And that can be just around the globe. And America is destined and needs to step up and lead. There is a leadership void, and in that void, someone will rush to fill that void. I wanted to just start out with just relaying a story. I was in Bethlehem not too long ago. And the guide that was taking me around Bethlehem was a Christian whose family had been there for centuries. And he said, you know, back in 1990, there was about 60% of Bethlehem's population was Christian. He said just 10 years later, it had dropped 20%, about 40% of the population was Christian. Today, it's about 15%. And we're seeing that over and over again throughout areas not only of the Middle East, but in other areas around the world. Whether it's beheadings, or as Ili was talking about, the rape and pillage, the targeting of religious minorities, specifically Christians, is something that we as a nation have to step up and shine a light on. 77% in a recent study of the world's population lives in countries with a high or very high overall level of restrictions on religion. Now, this is completely foreign to us here. One of the very, the strength of this nation is the fact that we're able to worship as we choose. We actually view that as one of our strengths. And yet when we look at the statistics of, this was a study that was done of about 198 countries, 77%. When 77% are not able to worship as they choose and are being persecuted for their faith, that is something that should cry out as a human rights violation that needs to be addressed, highlighted, and dealt with immediately. Christians were harassed by governments or social groups in over 50% of the countries in this recent Pew poll. And the use of violence as a way to compel individuals either to adhere to religious norms has increased from 33% of the countries to almost 40% in the past year alone. So if we think this is a problem that is going away, we see it quite the opposite, as a problem that is actually getting worse day by day. We here in this nation, as the greatest force for human dignity in the world, the United States, I believe, has an obligation to send an unequivocal message that we will not tolerate countries that fail to protect the very fundamental freedoms of religious liberty, especially with religious minorities. And the best way to achieve this goal, I believe, is to put the people before the party, before politics, so that Congress can work in a bipartisan manner. Because this is something that, frankly, I believe unites us. This is something that, again, as someone that has been in Congress, has been part of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, believes that as we as Americans need to stand up for human rights around the world. And this is one of those things that is not dividing us and should never divide us. Republicans, Democrats alike should be speaking with one strong voice here. When we talked before about the absence of leadership, this is an opportunity for the United States to step up and lead. So the persecution of religious minorities is something that we have an opportunity to be able to try to help. And we must show that we will not stand idly by as nations persecute innocent individuals because of their religion. This is why we've taken action by either joining caucuses here, by co-sponsoring legislation, or have taken action speaking out on the floor. But there is so much more that we can do. I want to thank you all for being here. Right? You all are going to play an active role in this process as well, encouraging your elected officials. And frankly, it doesn't have to be members of Congress. It can be local elected officials. Anybody that has an opportunity to either shine a light on what's going on, be able to highlight the persecution. You heard from Illy before, whether it be about the destruction of either those churches or artifacts that are going on to try to systematically deny that they may have ever existed. We know that this last year was the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. The Assyrian Christians are getting slaughtered. The Greeks, this is something that again goes on and on and on. So protecting religious minorities persecuted by ISIS. There is obviously a piece of legislation that Congressman Vargas has introduced, one that I'm pleased to be able to work with him on. And again, as we look at the atrocities that are happening, we look at the people that are fleeing, that are willing to do just about anything to get out of or out from underneath the persecution of ISIS. We're seeing people that are dying in their search for freedom so that they may be able to worship as they choose, or at least not be persecuted for who they are. And that's one of the things that, again, we in the United States State Department, we as a United States Congress, I believe, have an obligation to do more. This is not just a European issue. This is an issue that we here in the United States, as the lone superpower, as a leader in the world, have an obligation, I believe, to step up and do something about. So I believe that we need to have international intervention in what's happening. And on behalf of the Iraqi and Syrian civilians facing this humanitarian crisis, Dave Trott, who I know I think is going to come and talk with you later today, has been a leader on this as well. So for me, I'm very encouraged by the fact that we have bipartisan support to be able to use the power of the United States Congress, not only to highlight things, but hopefully to try to pressure folks in the United States State Department to do some things to be able to ease what's going on right now in front of us. I think Frank Wolf is going to be here today as well. Was I right in hearing that? We're going to hear from former Congressman Wolf, who has been an outspoken leader when it comes to human rights. We are certainly sorry not to have him in the Congress. He has been a steadfast stalwart in highlighting those issues out there and working across the aisle to make sure that, again, we are standing up for religious minorities and those that are being persecuted. So from my standpoint, let me just simply say, as a fairly new member of the United States Congress, I am delighted to be able to work with those, any of us, Republicans, Democrats, who are willing to stand up and speak out. Because this is not about right versus left. This is about right versus wrong. This is about making sure that those who have potentially a different faith than those in power have the ability to still worship their Savior, whomever that may be. For us, we're talking about Christians, and certainly my Christian faith, let me just tell you, I think is very important, and don't know what I would do were I not be able to worship as I choose here in this nation. We're extremely fortunate to be able to be here, and we have to take that obligation very seriously and use that power and strength of the United States and the United States Congress to speak out. I see we've got Peter Roskam and Dan Lipinski, so we're getting an all-star lineup here from the Illinois delegation, which we're excited about. And let me just say, as I wrap up, that Peter Roskam, who just recently got back from a trip to Poland and to Israel, has been a leader when it comes to speaking out about the atrocities that are going on and really standing up for Christians around the globe. He is a great man of faith. I know his wife Elizabeth, so it's not really fair when she comes out, because that's an automatic home team advantage when she speaks with him. But I will say that we're very fortunate to have Peter and Dan Lipinski in the Illinois delegation, and I think these are two outstanding men that you'll have an opportunity to hear from. So I don't know who's next. Is it?
Mr. Roskam is next.
And it is my honor to be able to introduce to you my mentor here in the United States Congress, Peter Roskam.